when folks had to break into industries. But then it started creating an us versus them mentality that I think is really harmful. I consider myself a minority, born Muslim, etc. I wouldn't check off any.
There's no such thing as born Muslim. I mean, there is like, okay, I was born Christian based on the fact that like my parents were, my dad was more like, I'm Christian to marry your mother. Anyway, but you can't, you know what I mean? Like, don't do the Jewish thing. Like, we're not born, you know. Okay. All right. Anyway, like say born Arab, Turkish. So you're not Turkish anymore? Going back to it, which is actually kind of odd that the Turk and the Armenian. Okay. Anyway, we have Dr. Phil, who I used to cover on this channel a lot until he started copywriting me every chance he got. We have Dr. Phil Schooling, Ana Kasparian, and Trank Huger on their own show. Dr. Phil laying down the law on their own show. And they're having a conversation about one of my favorite topics to touch on, and that's affirmative action. Let's get into it.
Of the racial categories and religious categories when I was applying to college. And because I don't want to be judged as, oh, he only made it because he's a minority, right? Yeah. And I think that's greatly harmful to minorities. So I hear you on all that. But what if we made it about income level? You got a poor kid in the Bronx, you got a poor kid in the Appalachia, and we all know that, you know, our kids are going to have a lot more opportunity than their kids. What if we said, you know, the schools, you can take that into account because they've overcome more to get to the results they got. Would you be comfortable with?
Let me give you the answer to that before Dr. Phil. Give me a pile of names of people who are all getting straight A's, and then, you know, in their essay they can write about that if they want to. But the thing is, I'll accept whoever. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll accept whoever. How are they going to pay for it, right? Then we should have scholarships for those kind of people. But I don't think that it should be part of the quota that we had brought in many poor people. And I hate using that term. Like, oh, we need a quota of people who are under the poverty level. Like, I just don't know that I think we should have that quota as in, like, not to be a criteria to get in, but a criteria to get the financial assistance that's needed. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, you know. Let the best get in. I don't need to know all that about if you're either from Appalachia or from Hollywood, right? Let the best get in, but we know that the person from Appalachia is like, all right, she's in, she's smart, she's great. She doesn't know how she's going to pay for it. She gets more assistance than the person from Hollywood. I mean, that's just how it should be. I don't think that that's a big deal or hard to understand. Why didn't it turn on? Embarrassing.
With that.
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. You're comparing what to what?
So, for example, two kids are applying to Harvard, right? We're not looking at their race. We're just saying, hey, one grew up poor in West Virginia.
Why make them go to Harvard?
Michigan, it doesn't matter.
That's
University of West
intellectual
Virginia.
rot. Let's put them somewhere that you got a chance to actually get an education out of.
Believe me, I got my issues with Harvard too.
Yeah.
So, but you see what I'm saying? They're applying to school. One kid's from West Virginia, and he's making his parents made $28,000. The other guy's parents make $2.5 million. He got private schools to take the SATs. He got private this, private that. It sort of has more opportunities. If the kid has got the same scores as him that was poor, man, he had to work so much harder to get there. Not every time, but potentially. So that to me feels more like a meritocracy than just going, oh, good luck, kiddo.
Well, that's why you have admission committees, right? That's why you can look and see what the background is of the kids. And obviously, I think, I say in the book, whether you start on third base, dugout, or dumpster, you've still got to climb the hill. And I think these kids that get in based on family legacy and stuff like that, that's just as much an injustice as a kid who you put in on a quota system.
Calm down, Anna. We know you don't like rich people, though I do believe that too. I just think that give me the resumes. I don't need to know that your father, owns GlaxoSmithKline or something, or or whatever else. I don't need to know all that. Just give me the resume of what you've done, how you've done it, and your grades. That's it. But calm down, Anna. By the way, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you to every eye that lands on these videos. Let's go.
They shouldn't allow those kids in there
Here.
either. I mean, that's terrible. I don't want a doctor operating on my brain because his mom was a good brain surgeon. So they got in, and he didn't do well on the MCAT, but his mom did well. So put him in. No thanks. I'd rather take the kid from the Appalachians who climbed the hill and got up there by himself and worked nights and still did all of this stuff. That's what I'm saying. If we give too much and don't let these kids climb out of there and observe themselves doing that, that's where your self-esteem comes from. That's where your self-worth comes from. That's where you make attributions to yourself. You watch yourself do that and go, you know what? I overcame that. I believe in myself. I believe in my ability to do this because I've seen me do it. That's how people get that's how they get their self-image. That's how they get their self-esteem. And if you do it for them, these helicopter parents who smooth out all of the bumps in their kids' lives, that kid never learns to overcome adversity. And so that cheats them out of the chance to make self-attributions that they lean on when they get into tough times. So, I would much more believe in that kid from the Appalachians than I would the kid that had it all paved for him.
Well, yeah, obviously, but see, it's like don't let somebody in just because they're rich, right? Like, but you know, the rich kid had to study a lot too. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, let's not come with any biases. Pass me the stack of resumes. Let me look through them. That's it. But where the part of it that comes up that makes the difference is, can you afford the school? And I think that if I have the top 100, no matter where they came from, they all should be able to get in. At that point, they should all be able to get in, you know, because I have the top minds. So I'm going to do whatever it takes. Maybe one person, it doesn't cost them as much to get in. And then maybe the other person needs a lot of help. But that's what financial aid, and I mean, we live in a first world, quote unquote, superpower. So me explaining this, I mean, we pay for other people's educations in other countries. So why can't we, that right there is just, to me, like everything, I'm going too far. But again, I don't have a bias towards rich kids either. I don't want to, if it's obvious that this kid got a C on the MCAT and took the spot of somebody who got an A on the MCAT because their mother works in so-and-so department, I don't want them in my school or my, you know, like, I'm sorry, I have somebody else who I can get. But I don't want to think that every rich kid is that story either. Just give me the stack. That's all I want.
Had an SAT coach, had all of that. I would much, if I had a chance, if I was going to hire one of the two, I'd hire the Appalachian kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, in a flat second.
I've been dying to ask you this question because I agree. Ideally, we have a merit-based system, right? But you also have to kind of take a step back and look at our cultural landscape and the kind of behavior that tends to get rewarded that infuriates me. And I think a prime example is actually someone who came on your show, that Cash Me Outside chick, right? That woman, she's a multi-millionaire now. Multi-millionaire, you know? And she was brought on your show by her mother because of her bad behavior. And her bad behavior became a national sensation. And then she went off to make a lot of money off of her whole persona and everything. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, what can we do to change the culture so bad behavior doesn't get rewarded?
Well, you know, you read the book, and you know, I wrote it down. It's one of the most fundamental principles. I put it in the book. Number 3, don't reward bad behavior or support conduct that you don't value. That's one of the most fundamental principles of psychology. You don't reward bad behavior because the behavior you reward, you're going to see again and again and again. You withhold reward or you introduce a negative to that person, they're going to stop doing that. You know, it's true with rats. You put a rat in a cage and they push a lever and get a food pellet. You know what? They're going to push that lever again.
We're having a serious conversation, and that's what Ana Kasparian decided that she could come up with. Like, you know, I mean, that's the best that she could do. Catch me outside. The girl went, and she got on a show. She carried on. She wasn't bad looking back then. She certainly got a lot going on now. And she made content out of content. How is it any different than like when Kim Kardashian? Okay.
Demonizing people and how that doesn't really lead to a good outcome. However, I think the frustration that a lot of middle class, hardworking, tax-paying Americans are feeling is just this unfairness in the system, where if you are an ordinary worker in America and you get one thing wrong on your taxes, the IRS will be knocking on your door and they will audit you. My first year at TYT, I'm making $24,000, okay? I made one small mistake because at first
Allegedly.
well, here's what my mistake was. At first I got hired as a, private contractor, and then halfway through that year, they brought me on payroll. So all of a sudden I'm W-2, whatever. One of my tax forms I never got. So when I reported my income, one of the tax forms, I didn't report some of my income, but that wasn't intentional. Anyway,
Allegedly.
They were $24,000. That was my income that year. IRS knocking on my door. They want to audit me. And so when I see the offshore bank accounts, when I see all of the tricky pizzicky things that are happening with the ultra rich, where they're not paying their fair share and they're getting away with it oftentimes when the IRS suspects that they're dodging their taxes, because auditing them is a lot more expensive and complicated than auditing, a bozo like me. It leads to division in the country, anger in the country. And I've actually changed my mind a little bit about how, if we just tax the rich, all of our problems will go away. I disagree with that, because I just saw what happened in California. I just saw what happened with 24.
Yeah, it took her too long to figure out that was never the case. And what you need to know is that, the thing is that they got me like that on Obamacare when they said we'll take more from the rich and give to the poor so then everybody can have insurance. I was like, okay, sounds like a good idea. I didn't know that I was considered rich because I was single and LPN. My insurance went up 3 times. I had to pay bills. I haven't had insurance ever since. And I was like, we're talking about Obamacare? I mean, now it's like it is what it is. But, you learn these politicians, they lie to you and stuff. That's why the left with this emotion thing is really a mess. But yeah, these conversations are definitely worth having to understand how to make society better, whatever that means anymore. It's all just a lot of grandstanding and content, though. It is. I think that things could be easily solved. They just don't want to solve them because then they'd lose their jobs. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.